Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast, the podcast that is passing wisdom to the next generation of athletes, coaches, and parents to transform leaders on and off the court. And in today's episode, it is an episode of Coach's Corner, our Friday edition of the show, where I, Coach Furtado, I share what I'm learning about in the coaching world, what I'm getting questions about from parents and other coaches and athletes as well. And so, in today's episode, I actually got an opportunity to run our first ever Bridging Impact basketball and leadership camp this week for high schoolers, and it was a ton of fun. And so I had a moment earlier this week where I had an opportunity to play some pickup basketball at the location of where I was the summer camp director last year for Royal Basketball School. And so it's amazing to see what happens, right, in a year. And so I want to give you a little history lesson on just a little bit of history around Bridging Impact and mission. And then, I'm going to do my best to kind of tie it in and weave it in terms of like asking you reflection questions along as I share kind of my story and journey to founding Bridging Impact Basketball. But, for those that have been following me for a while, I actually had, kind of, not, I wouldn't necessarily say a career, but a brand and something about like youth development and giving back that was before sports. So my freshman year of college, I went to the University of Oregon and I was volunteering through this group called the Holden Center where I ended up working, but that's not important to this story as of right now. I had the opportunity to volunteer at a Boys and Girls Club, local Boys and Girls Club in Eugene, Oregon, and something about it clicked, right? It felt like a connection. I still remember connecting with this younger, kid that actually shared the name of Justin, and we would, play Legos and kind of, I get the opportunity every Tuesday to connect with him and obviously connect with other kids, get to shoot around, shoot some hoops, and just felt like a, you know, connection to that and connection to, my higher purpose is to be, when I originally started, I want to be a positive role model, right? So maybe you've had some times in your life, you can think back, because this is 5 years ago, actually 6 years ago, it was 2017 in the spring. And it's kind of funny now thinking back to it, this is really the journey where I started all, working with youth. And so, maybe you can think back to something, 5, 6 years ago of something that really planted the seed in your mind when you were like, that's something I'm passionate about. And, that's maybe, a reason that the dominoes started to fall. So I would say one of the first dominoes, obviously in my professional life, outside of athletics and being an athlete in my high school years and elementary, middle school. So with that, I got the first opportunity to run a basketball program at the Boys and Girls Club. That was in 2018 when I had been working there for about a year. And, I really didn't know much about coaching. And all I knew was what I knew from when I was a basketball athlete. Just, swing the ball, pass, do some ball handling, some shooting drills. Like really didn't think much of it. Just wanted to, kind of build a program at Boys and Girls Club and, basically continue to impact, youth and just teach the game of basketball, not really thinking much of it. And so, long story short, once I land here in Los Angeles, I actually was in a space where I was trying to help, former graduates, college graduates kind of transition and find themselves because that's something I was challenged with during the pandemic. And, I was doing some like work from home kind of entrepreneur aspect and I needed to get out of the house in Los Angeles. Like I was going crazy. So with that, I had the opportunity to start working at Royal Basketball School. For those that have been following me, I kind of ranked up quickly. Then we'll fast forward to summer camp where I got the opportunity, especially towards the end of the summer when my supervisor at the time had left. And then I got the opportunity to kind of step into the summer camp director role, which was a lot of fun. And so I say that because when I started Bridging Impact as a podcast just to pass, some wisdom along from leaders that I was curious about learning from who have worked with youth before, whether it's the after school setting, whether as a teacher or as a coach, right? And so I wanted to just pass some wisdom on for youth leadership onto, some coaches and after school teachers. That's what it kind of started out of as, not even necessarily sports. And then just, as I got more in depth, right, I started running the summer camp. And in July of last year, I realized, oh, I can turn Bridging Impact into an opportunity to teach basketball and leadership. For me as an entrepreneur, right, when you are you're creating your organization, your business, your nonprofit, your, personal brand, whatever it is, you have to find some sort of gap that is in quote unquote the market, right? And so one of the things that I found, in working with multiple different basketball organizations is they do a fine job on the basketball side of things, but there's an element of the teaching of life that is just not intentionally there. And so I wanted to, turn Bridging Impact into Bridging Impact Basketball and start actually building out programming for basketball and leadership. And it's really funny, right? Where I get the opportunity to connect with that, pivotal moment where I made that connection last summer that I could do this. I can bring leadership into basketball through Bridging Impact Basketball, and we can really make an impact on youth through the game of basketball, right? By teaching leadership. Right. And so with that, I actually, I had the opportunity to, obviously, I got the chance to, coach 6 different kids this week, actually 5 high schoolers. One was a little bit younger, but still could compete. And we went through, obviously we did it, I'm still doing basketball, right? And strength and conditioning, but also, kind of like layering in and weaving in leadership. And so I asked them yesterday for our last day of camp, I asked them, hey, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much more do you know about leadership? And so I got a range, right? I got a range of answers from 2 to 4. And I was really appreciative of that person that put up 2, because that gave me a great insight into, okay, I need to still do a better job, right? And I feel like as leaders have a growth mindset. And my goal is to make sure that in the next camp, right, I will be able to weave in leadership more, be able to demonstrate it more, and figure out ways that I can communicate and get them to be leaders over time, right? And that's a big thing too, is that I've learned as a coach, and for those coaches that are listening here, that are really passionate, they really want to impact, kids and youth, and that's what most of us get into the coaching business for. We're really passionate, and with that being said, it's really important to remember that what we teach one day is not what they're going to learn in that day, right? We are planting seeds. We are then have to water. We have to make sure we give sun. We have to give soil. We have to recorrect that fertilizer, and just make sure that it's a constant daily basis and reminder. You can't become, in my opinion, you can't become a leader in one week, right? You can't become a leader in 1 month. It takes time, but you can start planting the seeds and the opportunities, so that way, 6 months later, a year later, you get that opportunity where they're like, oh, coach said, I need to be actively listening, and then they are, in a job interview where they're like having to, make sure that they have that connection. We talk about leadership voice, right? When you're playing basketball, you can't talk quietly. You have to talk with confidence. And a lot of athletes, young high school athletes, they're figuring out who they are. So, sometimes they don't want to be they're not confident, right? A lot of people struggle with confidence. I've struggled with confidence, right? I've struggled with confidence last year, and so just helping them through that process, that it's a journey and it's not just one day. It's beautiful. I think that's one of the things I'm most grateful for. And, as you are listening to this, I just really want to encourage you as you're along with your journey, whoever you are and however you're listening, that you are making sure that you are reflecting on that purpose, that connection. And I feel like that's what's really driving me and has led to each domino and to this, camp that I just got the opportunity to run. Like, I was thinking about it. I was driving the other day. I'm in Santa Monica, California. I'm coaching basketball pretty much for a living. I'm living the dream, right? Like, I am literally living the dream. And that's the last thing I will kind of leave off with, is I think sometimes, I can be so hyper focused, right, on lunch in the camp, making sure I fill all the camp spots, getting people out, is that, sometimes I focus always on that next thing. Like, and I'm always going to be ambitious. That's just who I am as a person. But I need to make sure that I remind myself to enjoy the people around me, enjoy the moments, the fun moments during camp, the moments after camp, and connecting with people, because it's a journey, right? And it's these dominoes. And it's funny to think 6 years ago is when I really started working with youth. And last year I was directing a summer camp for another organization, and here we are, directing in our own summer camp, to teach basketball and leadership, what I feel called to do. So I feel very grateful for that. So I hope, this opportunity, this my chance of like reflecting here, open publicly, gets you to think about some of your purpose and how you want to continue to give that back and make connections with other people, because that's what it's all about. It's all about connecting and helping and uplifting other people. I think, for me, sometimes I can, just take things a little too serious. So just making sure that, I'm spreading the love and the joy of the game to the next generation and teaching that leadership. If I'm doing that, I'm doing my job, and I feel grateful to wake up and be able to do that every single day. So thank you for listening to this episode. If you got something out of it, if you want to share it with a friend, like that'd mean a lot to me. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're everywhere. And if you can leave us a review on Spotify, or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, you can rate us on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube. Like, that's just how we're going to grow. I'm just really all about teaching leadership through basketball. So, all right, Coach Furtado out. Have a wonderful day, evening, morning, weekend, whenever you're listening to this. Cheers.